All right, let's dive into one of the shortest books in the Old Testament. But don't let its size fool you. Its message was so powerful it turned an entire nation around. This is the story of Haggai, a prophet who said everything he needed to say in just 3 months, and then just vanished from history, right before God went silent for 400 years. So what did he say that was so incredibly potent? Let's get into it.
So, our story kicks off in 538 BC. The king of Persia, Cyrus the Great, issues this just unbelievable decree. All the people who'd been deported, including the Jewish people exiled in Babylon, could go home. The only catch? Rebuild your temples and, pray for me. Now, for Cyrus, it was a smart political move. But for the Jewish people, it was a flat-out miracle. The exile was finally over.
But here's where the story takes a weird turn. After this initial explosion of hope, the single most important project they had, rebuilding God's temple in Jerusalem, just stopped. It ground to a complete halt. And it stayed that way for 18 long, silent years.
And that is the central question we're digging into. How could a people who were freed by a miracle, who came home with this divine mission, just let the very heart of their nation sit in a pile of rubble for almost 2 decades? The answer is, well, it's a fascinating mix of human nature, money problems, and faith.
To really get what went wrong, we need to put ourselves in their shoes, right there in Jerusalem. You have to feel the crushing disappointment they were living with. That initial hope was long gone, and in its place was just this deep, nationwide depression.
So, looking at this timeline, what really jumps out is the huge gap between the start and, well, the non-finish. Think about it, only about 50,000 people actually came back. Most of them stayed in Babylon, where life was, pretty comfortable. This small group that returned was fired up. They built an altar for worship before they even built their own houses. But then, reality hit. Hard. They had hostile neighbors, no money, and the politics back in Persia were changing. So after just 2 years, the work stopped. And for 18 years, they faced nothing but failed crops, crazy inflation, and a crippling drought. Their hope just completely bottomed out.
And here's how they coped with it. It's so relatable. They didn't say, we shouldn't build the temple anymore. Nope. They said, the time just isn't right. They weren't questioning the duty. They were questioning the timing. It's such a classic way we justify our own inaction, right? We think, oh, if things were just a little better, then I'd be more faithful. We blame our circumstances instead of just facing our own choices.
So into this national funk steps Haggai. But he's not your typical prophet. His book isn't full of, soaring poetry or wild visions. It's short, sharp, almost like a doctor's report. He's less of a preacher and more of a diagnostician, showing up to figure out the root cause of their paralysis.
Haggai doesn't start by yelling at them. He starts with a question designed to just stop them in their tracks and make them think. He asks them to completely rethink the cause and effect of their whole lives. They were absolutely convinced their money problems were the reason they couldn't build. Haggai comes along and suggests, hey, maybe you've got that backwards.
And this slide just lays it out perfectly. He completely flips the script on them. Their whole perspective was, we can't afford to build God's house. Haggai's insight is basically, no, that's exactly why you can't afford anything else. It's a radical reframing of their entire situation. He's forcing them to see that their messed up priorities were the source of their problems, not the other way around. And then, bam, he lands the knockout punch with this question. He forces them to make a really simple visual comparison. He says, hey, look at your own houses. They look pretty good, right? Nice paneled walls, all finished. Now look at God's house. It's a wreck. He's basically saying your real priorities aren't in what you say, they're in what you build. And the most amazing thing happens. They listen. The diagnosis just hits them right where they live. And get this, in just over 3 weeks, the people get organized, they gather materials, and construction on the temple starts up again. It was a truly stunning turnaround.
But just as they're getting their momentum back, a new enemy shows up. A much quieter, more subtle one this time, discouragement. And it was being fueled by memory.
You see, the elders, the ones who had actually seen Solomon's incredible temple before the exile, they took one look at this new, humble building, and they just broke down and wept. To them, it seemed like nothing in comparison. And this is such a dangerous trap, right? Nostalgia for some idealized past was paralyzing them, keeping them from doing good work in the present. Haggai's response to this is one of the gentlest, most powerful lines in Scripture. He tells them that God doesn't measure faithfulness by how big or impressive the building is. He measures it by priority.
What matters to God is that He has a place among His people, no matter how small it might seem.
And to really drive the point home, God gives them a promise. He shifts their focus away from the past and points them toward the future. He declares that the glory of this second temple would one day be even greater than the first one, not because of its size, but because of His presence.
So, a couple of months go by. The people are working their tails off, but there's a new crisis. Haggai had promised that if they obeyed, blessings would follow. But the one thing they desperately needed, the rain for their crops, still hadn't come.
So naturally, people are confused. They're thinking, we're doing the right thing, so why isn't God holding up His end of the deal? And Haggai, once again, doesn't panic. He asks another simple diagnostic question. He says, okay, priests, tell me this. If a holy object touches an unholy one, what spreads? Does the holiness make the other thing clean, or does the uncleanness make the holy thing dirty? And the answer is obvious. Contamination always spreads, holiness doesn't.
And this led to the crucial insight. The problem wasn't their work, it was their hearts. They were building a holy temple, but they were doing it with unholy lives. They were contaminating the clean work with their own compromises and unconfessed sin. As soon as Haggai pointed this out, the people repented. And get this, the very next day, the rains finally came. It's such a powerful lesson. God is way less concerned with what we do for Him than who we are while we're doing it.
Haggai's final message wasn't for the whole nation. It was a personal and incredibly powerful word delivered directly to their leader, the prince Zerubbabel.
God calls Zerubbabel His signet ring. Now, a signet ring was a huge deal. It was a king's personal seal, his mark of authority. It was like his signature and his ID all rolled into one. For God to call Zerubbabel His signet ring was an unbreakable promise that even though he was just a governor under Persian rule, his royal family line would be restored.
And this is where the story gets just mind-blowing. Zerubbabel himself never actually became a king. But fast forward hundreds of years. When you trace the two different genealogies of Jesus in the New Testament, one through his legal father Joseph, the other through his mother Mary, you find something absolutely extraordinary. Both family lines go all the way back to King David, but they split apart along the way. And they come back together in just one man, Zerubbabel. The promise was kept, not politically in his lifetime, but messianically. He became the crucial link, a direct ancestor to the King of Kings.
So what do we take away from this short but amazing book? It really boils down to 3 timeless truths. First, put first things first. Don't wait around for life to be perfect or affordable to prioritize what actually matters. Second, do good work, but do it with a clean heart, because who we are is way more important than what we built. And finally, don't despise small beginnings, because God measures faithfulness by our priority, not by the size of the project.
And that leaves us with one final, pretty challenging thought. A question Haggai might just ask us today. As you think about your own life, your priorities, your projects, your relationships, what is the most important thing that you've left in ruins, just waiting for a better time?